Djamel Zitouni takes over the armed Islamic group of Algeria on October 27, 1994. There are allegations that the Algerian government manipulated the GIA from its creation in 1991. After going through several leaders, it appeared that the GIA's new leader, Zitouni, is in fact an agent of the Algerian intelligence agency. For instance, in 2005, The Guardian will report that Algerian intelligence managed to place Djamel Zitouni, one of the Islamists it controlled, as the head of the GIA. And journalist Jonathan Randall will write in a 2005 book that, according to Abdelkader Tiga, a former Algerian security officer, army intelligence controlled overall GIA leader Djamel Zitouni and used his men to massacre civilians to turn Algerian and French public opinion against the jihadis. Indeed, prior to Zitouni taking over, the GIA tried to limit civilian casualties in their many attacks between December of 91 and October of 94. But Zitouni launches many attacks on civilian targets. He also attacks other Islamist militant groups, such as the rival Islamic Salvation Army. He also launches a series of attacks inside France. Zitouni also kills many of the genuine Islamists within the GIA. These controversial tactics cause the GIA to slowly lose popular support, and the group also splits into many dissident factions. Some international militant leaders, such as Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri and Abu Qatada, continue to support the GIA. Zitouni would be killed by a rival faction on July 16, 1996. However, on Christmas Eve in 1994, an Air France Airbus A500 carrying 227 passengers and crews is hijacked in Algiers, Algeria, by 4 Algerians wearing security guard uniforms. They are members of the group linked to Al-Qaeda, the armed Islamic group. They land in Marseille, France, and demand a very large amount of jet fuel. During a prolonged standoff, the hijackers kill 2 passengers and release 63 others. They are heavily armed with 20 sticks of dynamite, assault rifles, hand grenades, and pistols. French authorities later determined their aim is to create a scenario where they crash the plane into the Eiffel Tower in Paris, but French special forces stormed the plane before it could depart from Marseille. Time magazine details the Eiffel Tower suicide plan in a cover story, in which a week later, Philippine investigators breaking up the Pachinko plot in Manila find a copy of the Times story in bomber Ramzi Youssef's possessions. Author Peter Lance notes that Youssef had close ties to Algerian Islamic militants and may have been connected to or inspired by the plot. Even though this is the 3rd attempt in 1994 to crash an airplane into a building, the New York Times will note that after 9/11, aviation security officials never extrapolated any sort of pattern from these incidents. Some doubts about who was ultimately behind the hijacking will surface later when allegations emerge that the GIA is infiltrated by Algerian intelligence. There is even evidence that top leader of the GIA at that time, Zitouni, was a government mole. As journalist Jonathan Randall would later state, the aircraft was originally held at the Algiers airport in security circumstances so suspect, the French government criticized what it felt was the Algerian authorities' ambiguous behavior. Only stern French insistence finally extracted Algerian government authorization to let the aircraft take off.